The McLaren W1 is a technological marvel. Here's how it all works: the successor to the P1. Over a decade after the P1 rocked the automotive world, McLaren has unveiled its newest hypercar, the W1. Like its successor, the W1 is a rear-wheel drive hybrid with a V8 mounted in the middle. So much of this car's story is about aerodynamics, which is what you'd expect from an automaker tied to a Formula One team. McLaren quotes a maximum figure of 2,205 pounds at 174 miles per hour, which is close to the Aston Martin Valkyrie's 2,425 pounds, and exceeds the McLaren Senna's 1,800 pounds. Various active aerodynamic systems allow the W1 to reach a top speed of 217 miles per hour, the same as the P1's, despite the fact that the W1 is capable of generating far more downforce. The front wing is active, moving in an arc to add or trim downforce on the front axle as needed, while at the rear is what McLaren calls an active long-tail wing. Inspired by the long-tail bodywork of the 1997 F1 GTR race car, the rear bodywork can extend by nearly a foot to increase the effectiveness of the underbody diffuser. Speaking of which, the diffuser has wide tunnels that start curving up just behind the cabin and in front of the rear axle. Like the Bugatti Tourbillon, the diffuser also acts as a rear bumper, strong enough to take serious impacts without the need for an additional, heavy structure. Even the powertrain is angled down by 3 degrees to allow more room for diffuser channels. Even the front suspension helps boost downforce and brake cooling. McLaren uses double wishbones, as you'd expect, but it also has pushrods, torsion bar springs, and inboard dampers like an F1 car, moving a lot of suspension components out of the airflow. The wishbones and uprights are made from 3D printed titanium, and the lower wishbones are mounted high up and shaped like aerofoils, to contribute to the overall downforce. There's also a heave damper, another racing-derived device, that helps prevent the body from lowering too much under load. There's also no separate front subframe on the W1, with the suspension components bolting directly to the carbon fiber chassis. With a high downforce car, you need a stable aerodynamic platform, and that comes from the suspension. Like the P1, the W1 has road and race settings, the latter dropping ride height by 1.46 inches at the front and 0.7 inches at the rear, and massively increasing spring rates and damping force. The rear suspension is somewhat more conventional, with traditional coilover springs over dampers, as the rear downforce is generated by the diffuser. By moving those suspension components further outboard, McLaren can use wider, steeper, and therefore more effective diffuser channels. However, McLaren also has what it calls active drop length, which work with a Z-shaped anti-roll bar to control heave without the need for a third element, like the heave damper at the front. We've asked McLaren for more information on this particular system. We also asked how, specifically, ride height is adjusted. The modern McLaren automotive, as we know it, has used a twin-turbo V8 derived from a Nissan racing design dating back to the 1980s. With the W1, McLaren debuts its second in-house engine design after the 120-degree V6 of the Artura, a twin-turbocharger 4.0-liter V8 capable of 916 horsepower and 664 pound-feet of torque, and a 9,200 RPM redline. For those keeping track at home, that's as much horsepower as the P1's V8 and hybrid system had combined. Naturally, there are neat details. Like a lot of the latest ultra-high-performance combustion engines, the so-called MHP8 uses finger followers to actuate the valve springs, rather than hydraulically actuated bucket and shim tappets, enabling higher RPM performance. Unlike pretty much any engine we can think of, the V8 eschews a metal torsional damper for a fluid damping system. Unlike many other hybrid hypercars, the W1 only sends power to the rear wheels, and it does so via a new 8-speed dual-clutch transmission. And unlike the Artura, the W1 has its electric motor mounted to the side of the gearbox, operating downstream of the 2 clutches. It's powered by a 1.4 kilowatt-hour battery and makes 342 horsepower and 324 lb-ft on its own. Combined, you get 1,258 horsepower and 988 lb-ft. The W1 has a very short all-electric range, but the electric motor always handles reversing. It also adds different levels of boost to the engine based on the drive mode. A boost button on the steering wheel allows the driver to deploy maximum power all at once. There's a lot we still don't know about the W1, and we're eager to hear more. After poring over the details, The W1 seems to take a lot of the best technology and thinking available today to move the hypercar game forward. It may only have a little over 300 horsepower more than a P1, but this should be a much quicker car.